Shalom friends.
Shalom friends.
We are going to make a video telling you about why we have a big family. The reason for that is Teresa and I, we're not hermits. I have a small renovation business and I have clients and I have to interact with clients and vendors, and Teresa has to go out and spend time at the farmers markets and the stores, and we have relationships that we make with people outside of our home. So I don't mean that when I say this next part, that we're very much disconnected from current culture as much as it's possible while living in the middle of it. And what I mean by that is we don't watch television at all. And we were just talking last night about trying to figure out when the last time our television was even on. And we couldn't figure it out. And at that time, we watched some movie of some kind. I don't even remember what it was. But we noticed that there was crayon all over the TV screen. And who knows how long it had been there, because the TV hadn't been on for a long time. So there's no figuring out who wrote on the television. And we don't consume a lot of news. I won't get too much into that, but news is, you know, mostly entertainment. It's to generate revenue. That's a big part of it. And I'm not going to be shy about my feelings about this, but Teresa and I agree that a lot of the news is simply propaganda. Now, there are world events that are taking place. There are local events. There are things that are happening, and we keep up to date on those things. But, you know, a lot of what's on the news is stuff that's where they just go over it ad nauseum, and it's really, I think it has effect on people emotionally. It has a real effect on the way people think, and we're not doing that. And so we don't know what is on television shows, cable shows, what's happening in movies, what's being talked about in the news that most people are really connected to, and what people think about large families. Our own personal experience, some speculation, but a lot of what people believe today, whether they want to recognize it as truth or not, is shaped by popular culture. It just is. And I was curious to kind of find out what people think about large families. And so I spent some time one evening recently watching some shows. One that I watched a couple of episodes of was a show out of the UK following around Britain's biggest families. And I read the comments after the videos, and I think not being exposed to media all the time, I can see how they're really subtly manipulating the audience to feel a certain way about what's being presented. And it's pretty subtle, and honestly I think it's missed by most people. I think at the times when we were consuming media, news and television and movies, we missed it too. But it's a lot easier now to recognize what's going on when you're not in the midst of it all the time. So one show I watched in particular was about a family that had, I think, 16 kids, and the two parents were both adopted. Sorry about the shakiness. And it seemed that they were really pondering why they had so many children, and they were considering the possibility that they felt sort of this inner compulsion to continue to have children because they wondered why somebody could have given them up. And reading the comments, one comment in particular was somebody saying that that family seemed really down to earth and normal, as opposed to the cultish religious nuts in the United States. And they in particular mentioned the Quiverfall movement, and how this British family, they seem to really want their children, unlike the large families in America that are doing it just simply out of religious compulsion, and not necessarily because they want their children. And that idea, more than anything, is what prompted me to talk with Teresa about wanting to make this video and sort of really make it clear to you why we have our big family and what reasons for having a big family that don't apply to us. The number one We don't have an affiliation with any sort of a movement or ideology at all. One of the commenters said that these families who are religious, who have large families, they say they're not quiverful, but they are anyway. Like you all are or something. I think the best way to address that is to tell you what we do and don't even know about Quiverfall in particular, because it seems to be the one that people mention. So Teresa, what do you even know about Quiverfall?
Well, I don't really even remember much about Quiverfall, other than obviously they're no birth control family.
Right.
And they are religious in some sense. I honestly don't even remember. I read up on it one time, and the only thing I remember is when I was done reading, I felt that I would not affiliate myself with Quiverfall movement, and one thing I mentioned to you is that people have different ideas of what the Quiverfall movement is, and it might be something different to one person.
Sure, it's not something you can universally say is true for everybody, a particular set of beliefs and ideals.
Yeah, and we just didn't even know there was a Quiverfall.
Yeah, we had no clue. So that's kind of we didn't even. Where along the line were we with the number of children we had before we even knew that existed?
Yeah, probably like
halfway through, maybe.
At least halfway through.
5, 6 kids before
we
we even clue that it was a thing.
Yeah.
And even at that point, it was not something that we even bothered looking into. Teresa read a little bit about it. I basically knew nothing about it except for the things that people might say. And as our family grew, we would have people talk about, we don't feel the need to speak any names, but obviously people are aware of reality TV shows and large families that have been on reality TV shows. We don't even know what stations they were on. Mm-hmm. But I maybe had watched a news show or a preview about a large family that had a reality show, but never in my life had watched an entire show. And Teresa hadn't either, right?
No, I only watched one preview.
Watched previews, yeah.
Just one.
Yeah. So I might have watched one preview. And so that's what I'm saying. We really had no clue what anybody else was doing or why they were doing it. Our decision was a personal decision, and I think it might be difficult for people to it might possibly be difficult for people to understand the difference between the reason we made the choices that we made were because we felt we needed to be obedient to God. But when it comes to the size of our family, that's not a decision that's any different than any other decision that we make. And there's lots of stories for us to tell. We currently live in Louisiana, and we used to live in New York. And the reason we're down here is because we know that God called us to come down here. And we're married together, it's equally because we love each other and we want to be married to each other, and we recognize that the very best thing for each of us is to be married to the other. I hope you still agree.
I do.
Yeah?
Yes.
Good. But at the same time, we knew that it was God's will for us. And those two things aren't mutually exclusive. They don't have to be one exists in the absence of the other. They can both be true at the same time. And it's true that we have a large family, as Teresa has expressed in her birth story series, and that I have also expressed, sharing my thoughts about what she's said in her videos about her birth stories, that we would not have chosen at any point in our being engaged and early on in our marriage to have a family of 12.
It wasn't even
we never even
thought, because it was so unusual.
Yeah. So when Teresa brought it up to me, it was sort of a mind-blowing idea, but her bringing it up helped me to realize that God was trying to speak to me about it, and I wasn't listening to him. So that is true. We are people who are certain that we are not an accident. We're not some big bang cosmic dust where, I mean, if you just look at the physical world, it's incredible, and the idea of it being random is pretty impossible. It's really illogical. But way beyond the physical nature of our bodies, the idea of our consciousness, our emotions, our spiritual essence, this is to be random, it's impossible. And we believe absolutely that we're created by a creator that is above us, and that creator has a will for us, and it's good for us, and we believe we know who our creator is as much as it's possible for us in this life. And we believe that we are created, well, there's more reasons I think than just one, but really the essence of our existence is to know the one who made us. And that's true, but at the same time we want our children. And I feel like I was really a bit taken aback. Nothing really surprises me, but to read the comments after the videos where people felt like maybe these quote-unquote religious families in America don't seem to want their children. They're just doing it out of a religious compulsion. We're not at the moment, and I don't know that I would say that I'm sure we never will be, but it's certainly a possibility that we won't be. We have been in our lives members of organized church. We've gone to lots of different kinds of churches.
We have, yeah.
Together and separately, and we know that all along the way those were blessings for us. But we also see, as with any other human organization, some pretty great flaws. And don't necessarily mean just in the people, but I mean at the top. The organization and structure, and even sort of the idea of what churches are. So we were not connected at any point with people that held this ideal that you need to let God choose the size of your family. That was not, I mean, there was, there we weren't part of any kind of a group or friends with any other families or anything else where people were allowing God to open and close the womb, as the word says, as the scripture says. This was just God speaking to Teresa about it, trying to speak to me not listening to him until my wife told me that God was speaking to her, and then me realizing I better unstop my ears because God's talking to me too. And it was clear to both of us, and it's been clear all these years. So we want our children. We would not have chosen, because neither one of us are adopted that we know of. I look just like my dad, so it's not likely that I was adopted. And you look a lot like your family, so I think it's safe to say neither one of us were adopted. We don't feel a compulsion to continue to have children. We were, what did you say about, when I was talking about not being incomplete, that we were happy all along the way, right?
Yeah, we were happy, and we didn't know what life would have been like with our next child until our next child came. So we were happy and content.
How did you put it? Ignorance is bliss, right? We
Yeah,
were happy. We didn't know
Ignorance
what
is
we were
bliss.
missing.
We were ignorant to what life would be like when we had our next one.
So when we had Josiah, our first, we adored that cute little monkey, and we loved having him and only him, and that was fine, and we didn't need to have any other children to feel complete. I feel like we probably, if time had gone on and you hadn't gotten pregnant right away, we would have maybe thinking, oh, it might be nice to have another one. But because, you know, all the different reasons that you have, you don't want them to be alone, and you maybe like to have a girl. We never really had time to think about that because, you know, we just got pregnant again. But when we had Josiah and Isabel, our family was wonderful and beautiful and perfect, and we didn't feel incomplete. And I'm not saying anything negative about anybody else. I felt the one show where the two adopted parents I think they had 16 children, and would probably keep having children. That, you know, that's fascinating to me, and I think there's probably something to that maybe they feel sort of an incompleteness, but they clearly did love their children. But I would say that we never felt incomplete anywhere along the way. That's true, and at the same time, once we have our little one,
Yeah, it's really fascinating because truly, I mean, our family is complete today. But at the same time, we know what would life, I mean, we can't imagine life without our last one, number 10. Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness, it would be, I don't know, it would be kind of sad now that we have him and we know what life is like with him.
Yeah, so until you meet those little people, you honestly can't know, right? You can't have any idea what it's like with them. But then once you do have them, you can certainly imagine what life might be like without them. And it's more than kind of sad, you know? And not just for Teresa and I. I didn't say this as you and I were talking about how this video would go, but you know, they'll interview the children on these shows and they'll ask the kids, you know, do you want to have 16 kids or do you want to have 19 kids? And the kids are like, no, I don't always like them, and no, I don't want to have that many kids because, you know, it's noisy or, you know, whatever. But I do think that when you send children to school, listen, I got picked on in school sometimes. I certainly had occasion to be the one picking on other kids. It's just sort of the economy that you work with, you know. You're better off if somebody else is getting picked on, and even if you're not that kind of person by nature, you might do it a bit so you're not the one getting picked on. Gosh, adults do it, so of course children do it, pick on people who are different than them. And that was sort of a recurring theme on a couple of shows that I watched, was that the people around these children really made them feel like there was something wrong with them because they were different. And adults continue to do that. So, you know, we have not sheltered our children in that we have let them know what's different about our family, the way we live, the decisions we've made compared to other people. And some of what we do know, and we can speculate about what people think and why they think what they do about a family like ours. So they're well aware of it. It's not like they're living in a box somewhere and aren't aware that they're not like everybody else.
Well, everywhere we go, we're always stopped by people, so.
But at the same time, we don't allow them to pick on each other, and they're not in situations where they're being picked on by others. And I think that especially with young children, that does a lot of damage to their confidence. Mm-hmm. And why do you can't ask a 12-year-old kid, do they want to have 15 children like their parents do? It's a ridiculous question. It makes no sense. It's you know, ask them how they feel about being in a big family. Ask them how they feel about their brothers and sisters. That's another thing. But you know what else struck me, and I don't think you'd go and watch the shows I watched, but just how different everybody was. There was different reasons for having their big families. Their families were very different. Some of them fought all the time. And we're not trying to front and say that our family's perfect. Our children have their moments, there's no question about it, but it is not a lie to say that they truly do love and appreciate each other from top to bottom and bottom to top and everywhere in the middle. They really do. They have their moments where they're against each other, but those moments don't last, and they never take away from, you know, their learning experiences that end up causing them to grow into a deeper appreciation for each other eventually. You know, they're not going backwards in that sense. So I thought that was really interesting. I felt like, not that people necessarily have a twisted view of what large families are about, because that's what those large families were about. Although I do think it's manipulated to some degree. Certainly not everybody's the same. And you know, we love each and every one of our 10 children. We don't love any one of them more than the others. They're different. I mean, they're all so different.
Yeah, it's very fascinating.
It is fascinating. They're not the same at all. It's even kind of hard to pick out, other than really in isolated cases like Andrew being really rambunctious and boisterous, being like Josiah. But even so, you can see a lot more differences in them. You can't really compare one to the other. They're just such different people. But there's no favorites. They have things they're good at. There's things that are their strengths and weaknesses that are varying between them, and things about this child or that child that you really, really appreciate. And it doesn't mean you have less appreciation for your other children, just there's other things about them that you appreciate. And they add so much to our family, they add so much to each other. And without any of them, we would be, at this point, truly incomplete.
Mm-hmm.
But we weren't incomplete without them until we had them. So I just wanted to, what else did we talk about? Was there anything else we talked about that we wanted to put in this video? I can't recall, my dear.
Well, I think that it's meaningful to bring up the point that some people that are small families feel that my impression is that they would prefer not to have had their children.
Oh, yes.
And I just get that impression from talking to other women and men as well. Some of them saying things like, "Oh, I have my hands full with 2 of them," and
yeah, well, I would say even beyond that, because that could be something that people could explain away. And
yeah.
Now that you say that, when you mentioned about men, I've actually heard, at least on 1 or 2 occasions, men express their regret for having, children.
Yeah, and someone had said to me, "Well, I wish I didn't listen to someone who suggested that I have another child," and this was after they had their child. And
see, that's unimaginable to me.
I can't imagine that. Like, it makes me sad.
It is sad. I mean, it's really a tragedy for that child, because, and the other thing too, that's worth mentioning, and I wouldn't have thought about it until you said that. I mean, we still haven't done anything where I had you talk to our, not talk to our children, but have our children talk on the video. But our children are so excited when a baby's coming.
Yeah.
And that's another thing about these shows, is these kids, they were kind of accepting that was going to happen, but they'd be like, "I wish my parents would stop having children," and one kid said, and other people said, "Well, it is the way it is, but that's them, they're weird." But they didn't seem super excited about it. They just were accepting that that's the way life was. And you can believe us or don't believe us, but I got to tell you, the truth is, our children are so excited. When we sit down and I tell them that mom's expecting a baby, I mean, you can hear the shouting blocks away. They're so excited about it. They truly are. And the younger people, people say, "Well, you can't spend enough time with your children when you only have, if you have 2, you can do that, up to 4 maybe. You get too many kids, there's a threshold. You reach a line and you can't give them enough of your love and your attention and your time." And it's true, you can't give them as much attention. But the world doesn't revolve around any of us. And I'm not convinced that it's okay, really. It's the best thing for children to be the center of somebody's universe. But I'm pretty confident that none of our children feel left out or underappreciated, or they don't get enough attention. And I'll tell you what, the babies, they obviously get a lot of attention because mom's a nursing mom, and they get a lot of time with mom, and everybody likes the baby. But does that baby get as much one-on-one attention with dad and mom as, say, our first one did? Is Moshe, our 6th son and 10th child, getting as much one-on-one attention with mom and dad as Josiah got with us, our first? No, he's not.
Of course not.
But his siblings, not that they really argue about it, but they debate about whose turn it is to spend time with them. Sometimes it's because they want to get out of chores. But they want to spend time with him.
They really
And that little guy, he is so loved. He knows he's so loved. I took our 4 oldest children to their karate class this past week. And when we got home, our 2nd youngest child, Sophia, who was 2, who always gets super excited when daddy comes home, or mom, but when dad's home after being gone during the day working, I can hear her when I'm sticking the key in the door yelling, "Dad's home, Dad's home," and she runs to the door and she gives me leg hugs. And I said this in a Facebook post, that's one of God's greatest gifts, is little children giving you leg hugs when they're so short. They just grab your leg and hug you. And she usually, remember that one time she just kept walking around me, like hugging my leg in a circle? Remember? Oh, it was so cute.
I don't know.
She usually gives me really long leg hugs, but I just saw, I captured the moment in my mind. I saw it. I got home and she didn't yell "Dad's home." She said something like "They're home" or "Everybody's home" or something like that. And she gave me a leg hug, but it was a really quick one. And then she just went to her 4 oldest siblings, each one of them, looking up at them and patting them and telling them she was happy to see them. And then she was so excited, she was like a happy dog when their owner comes home. She just pirouetted around a couple times. She just twirled around in happiness because she was so excited that everybody was home. And the reason she feels that way is because they have adored her all of her 2 years. I mean, she has been adored, not just by Mom and Dad, but she has literally been completely adored by 8 people that came before her, on top of her parents adoring her, and she knows it. She knows she's adored. And our little fella Moshe, who is how old now? Just about
almost
6.
He's like 6.5.
6.5 months. He's not 7 months yet.
Yeah.
When I'm holding him and 2 or 3 of his brothers and sisters come near me, he gets this giant smile on his face, and he just looks at them face to face, smiling at them. He's so happy to see them. He has got an amazing relationship already with his older sister Madeline, who holds him all the time.
Yeah.
And our oldest son, who's 12, and you know he's going to be 13 here in just a minute. He wants to hold his little brother, and he gets excited to see his little brother. And everybody's going to stop what they're doing and go see him. And so we haven't dealt with. There's been sibling rivalries, but this full-on jealousy. Everybody's seen like viral videos of some kid finding out mom's having a baby and freaking out. You know, they're unhappy about it. We all have always wanted the babies that come. But we would not have initially made the choices that we made that led us to have this big family. Those two things are both true at the same time. We're compelled in our lives in every way to be obedient to Yahweh God. There's no question about that. But we have seen time and time again that in every aspect, including the size of our family, His will for us has been perfect. And we don't regret making the choices that we've made in obedience to God, because we wouldn't want to live the way that we would be living had we made the choices that we would have made had we not been trying to be obedient to God. Right?
Yeah.
Was there anything else you'd add to that?
Well, I would just say that I think that, well, I've heard people say to me that it's a shame that the little one doesn't get to be the baby of the family longer. And that is true that our little ones don't stay the baby of the family very long. But they appreciate the situation they're in. And our Sophia, who's 2, she adores her baby brother and loves to give him hugs and kisses and squeeze him. And he even tolerates her kind of smothering him a bit.
It's a good thing that he's a big husky boy. He can deal with her rough squeezes.
She adores him.
She really does, yeah. Yeah. All right. Yeah. That, I keep thinking of new things to say, unfortunately. Sorry, everybody. But, you know, people will tell you can't have children right away when you get married. And we had people tell us that. We didn't talk about this, right? On the video, actually? No. We had people tell us, good people. My pastor said, don't you know, wait, you know, to have children. And that might be true for some people. I don't know. We're not putting anything on anybody else. We're just telling you our personal decisions and why we felt that we should make the decisions we've made and what the results of those decisions have been. So we're not preaching to anybody about what they should do. But for us, we realize that unless you're like climbing Mount Everest or doing some really incredible team building stuff as a married couple, maybe then you learn something. If we go climb, you know, one of the highest peaks together and go through extreme physical duress, I'm sure I could come away with a great deal of appreciation for you that I wouldn't have otherwise. But that's not what people do, right? I mean, some people do, but you both work, you know, save up some money, go on more vacations, have more date nights, You know, that sort of thing. And there's a lot of people who have an abundance of time together where they can sit and talk as much as they want. And we have to sometimes fight a little bit for those times. We walked from our house a few blocks away to sit down and make this video, and we just appreciated holding each other's hand, I think, more so than people who get to do it all the time. Because we've got kids in tow, so we don't get to hold each other's hand all the time. But boy, when we get to, we really think about it and have a great deal of appreciation for it. And to sit down and talk a little bit about what we wanted to make this video about, that's really nice. It's something we appreciate doing. And I had said in my comments after one of Teresa's birth videos that I can't imagine how going on a cruise, having more nights out to the movies or to a steakhouse, were going to show me more things about her. What am I going to learn about her that I'm going to appreciate that adds up to being more than watching her be a mom? My appreciation for my wife is deeper because I've watched her be mom. And yeah, I can't stick as many pins on a map. I've been to less places because we have this big family, because we didn't wait to have children. Maybe we would have done some exploring, maybe we would have done some traveling. I have no idea what we would have done, but it's not to say there's nothing missed, but when you weigh that out, what's that worth? What's the value in that compared to what we've gained by being parents together? Being parents together and watching each other be parents is, looking back on it, we're sure it's more valuable.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's also really valuable to watch all of our children, older all the way down to younger, from Josiah down to Sophie, love our little Moshe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really hard to put into words the value of that, the joy we get from it, the entertainment, the laughter.
Yeah, it's really sweet and really special.
The stress relief.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, like it's healthy, it's healing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, laughter, they say, is the best medicine. We're not laughing at somebody telling crude jokes. We're not laughing at a funny movie. We're having this joyful laughing with our children, you know, like one of our children doing something funny to make the baby laugh, and the baby giggling, and the other kid looking like a goof, and they're enjoying themselves making the baby laugh. Like the enjoyment that you get from that, the kind of laughter that is, like, that's a better laughter. That's on every level, it's better. It's more entertaining, it's more healing. And so the things that we've gained from having our big family, I think as we talk about these things with you, it helps us to maybe understand it a little bit better.
Yeah, and I think too, just reflecting on every time that we have a child, to consider what happens in our bonding with one another and the effect that has on our relationship. And truly, I mean, I don't know what to say other than that it's a supernatural thing that happens every time we have a child.
I agree.
We could really feel a greater appreciation towards one another.
Mm-hmm. So our relationship is better today because we have 10 children. But it was really good when we started.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't incomplete. It's just more complete and more better. I know that's not proper. All right, we're going to end this one because it's long. So that is a little bit about why we do, and maybe some reasons that have nothing to do with why we do have our large family. But if anybody's confused, please don't be confused. We absolutely love and adore all of our children. Our children love and adore each other, and we are very thankful that we have all of them, and they are as wanted as any children out there that are wanted the most by their parents possibly can be. And there are certainly people who want their children less than we do. They're wanted and they're loved. At the same time, we made those decisions for the sake of being obedience to God, and they have proven to be the very best choices that we could have made. Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Shalom, friends.
Shalom.